The Gaza revitalization and security proposal. The Middle East is once again the focus of intense diplomatic speculation. Former President Donald Trump has unveiled a comprehensive and ambitious proposal aimed at resolving the long-standing conflict in the Gaza Strip. This plan, presented today, October 2, 2025, arrives at a critical juncture. Tensions in the region remain exceptionally high, following the escalations of recent years. And the humanitarian situation in Gaza has continued to be a source of global concern. International pressure has been mounting for a sustainable solution that moves beyond the cycle of violence. Past years have been marked by temporary ceasefires and recurring hostilities. Trump's proposal is being positioned as a pragmatic, security-first framework. It seeks to fundamentally alter the political and physical landscape of the Gaza Strip. The plan's architects claim it offers a pathway to stability, economic revitalization, and a definitive end to hostilities originating from the territory. The Trump proposal is structured around a clear, multi-phase timeline with each stage lasting several months. The initial phase, dubbed security consolidation, is set to begin within 30 days of all parties agreeing to the framework. During this 90-day period, the primary focus would be on the complete disarmament of all militant factions within Gaza. A multinational force would be deployed, with contingents from moderate Arab states and overseen by a neutral third-party monitor. They would be tasked to collect all heavy weaponry, dismantle rocket-launching infrastructure, and secure all known tunnel networks. This phase is considered the most critical, as all subsequent steps are contingent upon its successful completion. Following the disarmament period, the plan moves into a 6-month stabilization and transition phase. This is when the Israeli Defense Forces would begin a staged withdrawal from key urban centers inside Gaza. Concurrently, a new interim administrative body would be established, the Gaza Reconstruction Authority. It would be composed of vetted Palestinian technocrats and international representatives. The authority would assume control of civil services, including healthcare, education, and utilities. The immediate priority would be to restore basic services and begin coordinating the flow of humanitarian aid and reconstruction materials through designated, secure corridors. The proposed plan introduces significant changes to the map of the Gaza Strip, primarily focused on creating a new security architecture. A key feature is the establishment of a comprehensive security buffer zone along the entire perimeter of Gaza. This zone, approximately 1 kilometer wide, would be located entirely on the Gazan side of the current border fence. Under the plan, this area would be completely cleared of all buildings and agricultural activity. It would be designated a no-go area for civilians. It would be continuously monitored by advanced surveillance technology, including drones and sensors, operated jointly by Israeli and multinational forces to prevent cross-border incursions. The withdrawal of the Israeli Defense Forces is detailed as a carefully choreographed process tied to the timeline's phases. During the initial security consolidation phase, the IDF would maintain its positions. Upon successful completion of disarmament, the IDF would begin staged redeployment during the stabilization and transition phase. Troops would first pull back from densely populated areas like Gaza City, Khan Yunis, handing over internal security responsibilities to the newly formed multinational force. The IDF would then reposition itself outside the major urban centers to secure the new buffer zone and key transportation arteries. According to the proposal's maps, final IDF positions would be confined to the newly created buffer zone and a handful of strategic outposts overlooking critical infrastructure. So, the proposal lays out this idea for a brand new governing body to take charge of Gaza's civil affairs, called the Gaza Reconstruction Authority, or GRA for short. This group would be all about technocrats, not politicians. Palestinian professionals, engineers, economists, city managers, public health experts. Every single one would be screened by an international committee to rule out ties to Hamas or other militant groups. The GRA would have 2 leaders at the top, a Palestinian appointee, an international representative, probably from a neutral country. The setup aims to keep things transparent and accountable, especially for handling international aid. For security inside Gaza, a brand new police force, recruited from the local Gazan community. New recruits would go through extensive training, led by international security advisors, maybe from Jordan or Egypt. Training would focus on community policing, counterterrorism, and human rights. This force would handle public order, law enforcement, and security of government buildings and infrastructure. They would have zero military function. They would answer to the GRA as a civilian authority. The plan is for the police to be lightly armed, only standard policing equipment. That's to avoid confusion with the military. Overall security would be guaranteed by a multinational force, authorized by a coalition of allied nations. That force would secure Gaza's borders, patrol the buffer zone, watch the seaport, watch the airport, and keep the Strip totally demilitarized. The external force could act on its own against new security threats. For example, attempts to rebuild militant cells or smuggling weapons. The aim is to reassure Israel that security will be taken very seriously. The long-term government setup remains a big question mark. The GRA is meant to be temporary, managing the transition. After stability and economic growth, there could be free and fair municipal elections to pick local leaders. Gaza's permanent political status, and whether it connects with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, is left for future talks. Right now, it's about replacing the current power structure with a practical, non-ideological administration, rebuild Gaza from the ground up, and break the link between governing and militancy. While Donald Trump's proposal for Gaza is pretty detailed when it comes to security and economic plans, it leaves some really important long-term political questions hanging. The plan goes out of its way not to touch on the final status of Gaza in relation to a future Palestinian state. It doesn't say if Gaza would ever be reunited with the West Bank under a single government, or if it would stay as a separate self-governing area. This kind of ambiguity is actually a huge sticking point because it dodges the main Palestinian goal of having a contiguous and sovereign state. That leaves the possibility of a split-up future, which honestly a lot of Palestinians would flat-out reject. Another big unresolved issue is what happens to Palestinian refugees and their families, a core part of the whole conflict. The document doesn't mention the right of return, which is a major demand from Palestinians who were displaced in past wars. Critics are quick to say that any plan ignoring the refugee question can't really claim to be a full peace plan. The plan's success also totally depends on financial and political backing that honestly hasn't been locked in yet. Reviving Gaza's economy would need a massive amount of international money, like in the tens of billions of dollars. The proposal mentions a group of donor nations, but there aren't any firm promises. Whether regional and global powers are actually willing to fund such a huge and controversial project is still a big question mark. Plus, keeping a multinational force in a potentially unstable place for years or even decades could become less appealing over time. And then there's the issue of legitimacy. The plan calls for a technocratic authority and a new security force, both set up and supervised by international and Israeli interests. But there's no clear way for the people of Gaza to give their consent from the start. Without support from the local population, any new governing body could be seen as something imposed by outsiders, not something the people chose. That could easily spark dissent and resistance, which might totally undermine the stability the plan is supposed to create and raise some serious questions about whether it's actually democratic. So, when the Trump plan was revealed, it pretty much split opinions right down the middle. Supporters, right-leaning politicians in Israel, conservative voices in the United States, called it bold and realistic. They say a security-first approach is the only way to stop attacks from Gaza. Fans point to demilitarization, a buffer zone, as missing pieces of past peace efforts. Economists, development experts highlight reconstruction and economic growth. They link peace to jobs, infrastructure, trade, giving Gazans reason to choose stability over conflict. A new seaport, a new airport, backed by international investment, is pitched as a game-changer. Supporters say this beats the endless cycle of aid and destruction, but critics, Palestinian leaders, international watchers, pushed back hard. The Palestinian Authority slammed it as bypassing their legitimacy and splitting the Palestinian cause. They warn separating Gaza from the West Bank kills hopes for a unified state. Critics attack the big buffer zone, long-term Israeli presence, multinational forces as a new form of occupation. They say it undermines Gaza's sovereignty. Human rights groups, left-leaning organizations have raised red flags about civilian impact. They warn a wide buffer zone means displacement, destroyed homes, ruined farmland. They question the legitimacy of an unelected Gaza Reconstruction Authority and warn that ignoring politics for economics risks more conflict. Critics say lasting peace must be negotiated and address self-determination, justice, and human rights.